So we were discussing Indo-US bilateral trade. So one of the problem that we are facing with Indo-US is that of social security pact. They are not ready to have social security pact or totalization agreement with India. Next issue, one of the other factor that was having implications for Indo-US trade was Generalized System of Preferences, GSP. That is the program which expired in July 2013. Basically what happens under Generalized System of Preferences, the developed country allow a developing country to export its goods to developed countries at almost zero custom duty. And this is without reciprocal response is not required. Developing country can continue to impose tariff on the goods imported from developed countries, but developed countries like European Union and USA, they allow developing countries to export their goods to the developed countries at very low custom duty. Under Generalized System of Preferences, the US GSP program provides non-reciprocal duty-free tariff treatment to certain products imported from designated beneficiary developing countries. Here basically, in fact, USA and European Union and other developed countries have implemented similar programs since 1970s. So that the goods and products from developing countries may be exported to them, so that the developing countries may have some benefit. But US government, the Generalized System of Preferences, this expired in July 2013 with India. But US government extended the GSP for Indian exports on 4th August 2015. This has been extended. The US extended the GSP for Indian exporters in 2015. Thus, the 3,500 products got duty-free entry into USA. This move by US government will benefit basically Indian exporters to export range of products ranging from engineering products to chemicals to their biggest export destination. Now on 3,500 products, we get Generalized System of Preferences, which are subjected to very low custom duty. So this move will enable the Indian exporters to export a variety of products ranging from engineering and basically to chemicals to US. The US government has extended GSP for India till 2017. This will continue in existence till 2017. Now it is a good news for India. We were apprehensive regarding this, basically whether it will be extended or not, but it is a good news that variety of products now Indian exporters can continue to export to US at virtually very low custom duty. Next, after USA, the next important destination is Canada. Canada is next important destination. Basically, we also have good trade ties with Canada. In fact, in Canada, you might have heard about the prairie provinces. Manitoba, Saskatchewan and Alberta are the 3 prairie provinces. In fact, Saskatchewan province of Canada is a huge producer of pulses and wheat. 95% of pulses that India imports from Saskatchewan. It's a province of Canada. India's bilateral trade with Canada at present stands at $5.2 billion. Presently with Canada, our trade is $5.2 billion. Now, there is significant potential for this bilateral trade to grow. Huge potential is there. Bilateral negotiations are underway between India and Canada for formalizing a free trade agreement. Because once a free trade agreement is formalized, both the countries reduce the custom duties for those range of products which are included in free trade agreement. So what happens, we can export there and they can also export to us on those products where the custom duties are severely curtailed. So negotiations are going on with Canada for free trade agreement. Third is Mexico. It is a major market for India. The bilateral trade with Mexico is $5.9 billion. India's total trade with Mexico is $5.9 billion and it has potential to grow significantly. Mexico is a major producer of silver and oil. Chihuahua, largest silver mine, is in Mexico, and moreover the Gulf Coast of Mexico. This Gulf Coast of Mexico is having huge oil deposits. Tampico, Tuxpan, Veracruz are the large oil fields of Mexico. These are the large oil fields of Mexico on the coast of Gulf of Mexico. So there is huge potential. India is a major importer of oil and Mexico is a major producer of oil, as well as Mexico is also having large reserves of silver. So basically there is huge potential of trade to grow between India and Mexico. Now the next trading bloc is the European Union. European Union. In fact, it is a very big trading bloc. As a bloc, India's trade with the European Union is huge. India's trade with the European Union is huge. European Union as a region, European Union is a regional bloc, is India's largest trading partner. If you take the entire European Union, then it is India's largest trading partner. India's total merchandise trade with the European Union has increased 5 times. From $21 billion in 2000, in the year 2000, the trade with India and European Union was $21 billion. And in 2014, the bilateral trade reached $101 billion. The bilateral trade increased tremendously. Although if we see this European Union, we call it is the largest trading partner, although India's trade with WANA region, that is West Asia and North Africa, is in fact even larger than European Union. That is $129 billion. WANA region, you know, West Asia and North Africa. That includes 6 countries of Gulf Cooperation Council, 6 countries of West Asia and 6 countries of North Africa. We will discuss. Trade with that region is $129 billion. But that is basically comprising of various regions. And European Union is a single bloc. So we say European Union, we are having largest trade. Now the trade is $101 billion. European Union is a highly discerning market. The discerning means this has its own quality standard. You must export your product of high quality. European Union is a highly discerning market. It presents several challenges in the area of sanitary and phytosanitary measures. Quality should be very good. Secondly, technical standards should be very high. Third, this complex system of quotas and tariffs in European Union. Still, there is complex system of quota and tariff. We will discuss in textiles. Multi-fiber agreement has been abolished in 2005, but still there exists a complex system of quota. Every country's quota is fixed in certain products. In textiles, it has been abolished. Still there is complex system of quota and tariff in European Union. Moreover, the European Union's practice of constantly evolving, it is a practice of constantly evolving its sanitary and phytosanitary standards. It keeps on evolving it. It becomes very difficult for a developing country like India to meet their standards. And when they are continuously evolving the standards, these sanitary and phytosanitary standards, it becomes even more difficult for us to match that quality required. Basically, there is continuous process of evolving the sanitary and phytosanitary measures and procedures. That is a major challenge, and it raises the bar for exports from a developing country. While India's merchandise export in some sectors are very well integrated with the European Union market. In some sectors, basically India's exports are very well integrated. But there is significant potential for growth in other sectors also. There is huge potential for growth in other sectors as well. India has been the beneficiary of generalized system of preferences in some sectors. However, some of these sectors have now been excluded from the European Union Generalized System of Preferences list. Thus, it is adversely affecting India's market access for these products. Basically, previously under the Generalized System of Preferences, number of Indian products were included. So those products were subjected to zero or very low custom duty. Now this range of product has been decreased. Now those products which have been excluded from Generalized System of Preferences, for those products it is becoming difficult to export to European Union, because now they are subjected to higher tariff rates. Are you all getting this? Are you getting this? When they were included in GSP, then the custom duty imposed by European Union was low to zero. Now once some of the products have been excluded, now they are being subjected to the same higher custom duty. So the competitiveness of India's product is decreasing. And Indian-European Union Broad-Based Trade and Investment Agreement, BTR, Indian and European Union Broad-Based Trade and Investment Agreement has been under negotiation for several years, and the two sides have reached understanding on several issues. On several issues there is understanding. Apart from European Union, there are certain countries of Europe which are not part of European Union, that is non-European Union countries, that is European Free Trade Association. These are those countries which are not part of European Union. With these countries also we are trying to increase our trade potential. These are European Free Trade Association. This includes countries like Iceland, Norway, Switzerland and Liechtenstein. These countries are Norway, Iceland, Switzerland and Liechtenstein. India is negotiating Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement, TEPA, Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement with these countries. Once it gets concluded, India's trade with these countries will also increase. That is European Free Trade Association. Now let us see our trade relation with Australia and New Zealand. Australia is immensely rich in mineral resources, largest reserves of bauxite, basically huge reserves of iron ore, largest producer of pink diamond. Basically, Australia is having largest exporter of wool, second largest exporter of mutton, isn't it? Uranium, largest reserves of uranium, Mary Kathleen, Radium Hill. These are the reserves. These are the areas where uranium is found in abundance. World's 31% reserves of uranium are found in Australia. Largest reserves of uranium, huge reserves of coal, huge reserves of iron ore, huge reserves of pink diamond, basically huge reserves of bauxite. So Australia is minerally rich. There is considerable scope for both the sides, both India and Australia, to enhance our economic relationship. We have the scope for broadening the relationship as well as deepening the relationship. Basically, India and Australia have a strong and mutually beneficial partnership in energy and mineral sector. We already have a partnership in energy and mineral sector. Australia is an important source of 6 crucial inputs, namely iron ore, coking coal, copper, gold, uranium and LNG. Basically, Australia is an important source of these 6 crucial inputs. Basically, deposits of copper are also found in abundance. It is noteworthy that all the Australia's primary exports are received in India at zero tariff duty. All Australia's primary exports, natural resource based exports, are received in India at zero duty or very low tariff rates. And there is significant potential for Australia to scale up investment in India. Basically, we are already importing these raw materials from Australia. Now, Australia being a rich country, there is huge potential for Australia to scale up, to increase its investment in India, in areas like cold chain. We lack the export infrastructure. Australia can help in investment in areas like building cold chains, mega food park, biotech project, marine sector, infrastructure, clean and renewable energy, apart from mining and energy related projects. Australia can also invest in India in these sectors. India and Australia are negotiating a comprehensive economic cooperation agreement, CECA, covering trade in goods, services, investment and related issues. And once this agreement gets concluded, India's trade with Australia is bound to increase exponentially. Now, apart from Australia, there is New Zealand. Although a small country, but it is the bulk supplier of milk and related products to the world. Basically, if you see New Zealand, the northern island of New Zealand, there is a place basically known as Taranaki region of Northern Ireland. This is the region which has the highest density of milch cows. Huge, highest density of milch cows. Then there is Canterbury Plain, very famous for sheep. This Bank Peninsula, very famous for export of dairy products like cheese and butter. Basically, this is Utanga Peninsula Plateau, famous for sheep rearing. Basically Hawke's Bay, famous for sheep rearing. Auckland Peninsula, famous for basically Mediterranean climate and dairy farming. This is the only region in the world where Mediterranean climate is having dairy farming. Otherwise, in Mediterranean climate, grasses are not found. So milch cattle are absent. So New Zealand is having huge potential. It is the world supplier of dairy products. Basically, India and New Zealand are pursuing a bilateral negotiation for comprehensive economic partnership agreement. Both are pursuing negotiation for concluding comprehensive economic partnership agreement. New Zealand is globally recognized source of dairy and dairy products. It exports the high value dairy products to different parts of the world. It is also an important source of some fruits, lamb meat and wool. Now, after this, let us see what are the India's trade relations with South Asia. We are in South Asia and we must have very flexible and cordial relationship in economic field with our neighboring countries, because South Asia is it is a developing region and the countries are generally poor and lacking in resources. So let us see how the foreign trade policy is promoting trade in South Asia. India's trade relation with its immediate neighbors are special focus area of the government, because with your neighbors you need to have very cordial and smooth relations. India's total trade with SAARC is the agency, isn't it, where the countries of South Asia are included? South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. India's total trade with SAARC countries has increased from $5.6 billion, $5.6 billion in 2004-05 to $20 billion in 2013-14. That is, within the last 10 years, India's bilateral trade, India's total trade with South Asia has increased from $5.6 billion to $20 billion between 2004-05 to 2013-14. In fact, during the last 5-year period, that is from 2009-10 to 2013-14, exports from India to the South Asian countries have grown at a compound annual growth rate of 20%. India's export to South Asian countries have grown at a compound annual growth rate of 20%, while imports from the South Asian countries to India have grown at a rate of 10.5%. Now, Bangladesh is India's largest trading partner in SAARC. Bangladesh happens to be India's largest trading partner in SAARC, followed by Sri Lanka, followed by Nepal, and last is Pakistan. Although potential of trade with Pakistan is huge, but it is the political level. At political level, the countries are not having very cordial relations. So the trade has to be routed through Dubai. The same product reaches Pakistan at a higher rate, but they don't import directly from India. The circumcision of fruit is there, passing through Dubai. It reaches Pakistan. So in SAARC, the largest trading partner is Bangladesh, second is Sri Lanka, third is Nepal, and fourth is Pakistan. India provides duty-free market, zero duty market access to all the least developed countries of SAARC. That is to encourage their export and to reduce the trade deficit that those countries are having with India. To increase export, so that we are having zero duty market access to all the least developed countries of SAARC. Why? So that they may increase the exports. What we saw, our exports to the South Asian countries are growing at a rate of compound annual growth rate of 20%, and those countries are exporting India at a rate of 10%. So the trade deficit with these countries is in favor of India, but it is not for the this is not beneficial for those countries. So we are providing zero duty market access to all the least developed countries of SAARC for all tariff lines except 25 lines of liquor and tobacco. We are providing them zero duty market for all tariff lines except those 25 lines relating to liquor and tobacco. This measure is helping these countries of SAARC to reduce their trade deficit with India. This measure is helping them to reduce trade deficit with India. India also provides significant trade access to Sri Lanka. Under a separate bilateral India-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement. With Sri Lanka, we are having a separate India-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement. So by way of this agreement, India provides significant trade access to Sri Lanka. Now there are certain issues in South Asia that need to be addressed. What are those issues? First, India-Sri Lanka trade is mostly concluded under bilateral free trade agreement. The two countries completed the negotiation for comprehensive economic partnership agreement a few years ago that was aimed at promoting services and investment on both sides, but this agreement could not materialize because of certain reservations on the part of Sri Lankan government. They were apprehensive about the India's approach. Although this agreement would have been mutually beneficial, because right now in free FTA, as I told you, only goods are covered, and comprehensive economic partnership agreement, apart from goods, services and investment are also included. But there are certain apprehensions on the part of Sri Lanka, and so because of those reservations, this comprehensive economic partnership agreement could not materialize. Second issue is the operationalization of SAFTA, that is South Asia Free Trade Agreement, with respect to trade with Pakistan has been constrained. This SAFTA is there, but because of the political relationship between India and Pakistan, they are less than cordial. So what happens? And Pakistan is the next major economy after India. In South Asia, Pakistan is the next major economy, and because of the less than cordial relationship with Pakistan, the operationalization of SAFTA has not been made possible. The operationalization of SAFTA with respect to trade with Pakistan has been constrained by Pakistan's unique approach to trade with India. सीधे हमसे goods नहीं लेगा, वही good दुबई होके जाएगा तो दे देगा. Their consumers end paying more for the same good rather than importing from India. The route is through Dubai. Both sides are losing the trade, basically because they have specific Pakistan's unique approach to trade with India. Basically, not only do they maintain a legitimate sensitive list under SAFTA, but they also have a negative list of more than 1,000 products which cannot be exported from India to Pakistan. The same product will reach Pakistan by way of Dubai. But they maintain a negative list. Although the two countries had agreed to a roadmap for the normalization of relationship in 2012. In 2012, both India and Pakistan had agreed to a roadmap for the normalization of relationship. But this roadmap has not been acted upon due to continued reservations expressed by Pakistan. A roadmap for normalization of relationship could not be executed because Pakistan has its own set of reservations. As a result, the consumers in Pakistan are not only deprived of affordable, good quality Indian products, but they are also made to pay more for some of the Indian products which reach to Pakistan through circumvention of route. If the goods will go to Pakistan by way of Dubai, the transportation cost will increase and the cost of product will increase. Now, Iran. Iran had been basically having bad relations with US, and as a result of its adverse relations with US, India was also forced to sever its trade ties with Iran. But we do maintain a good trade relations with Iran. India's export to Iran have increased twofold in the last couple of years. The exports from India to Iran have doubled in last few years. This has been facilitated by rupee-ruble payment mechanism. We can make payment in rupee. For our exports which are exported, they can make payment in rupee, and we can make payment in ruble. So because of we have made an arrangement that we can pay each other's products in our domestic currency. So basically this increase in trade between India and Iran has been facilitated by rupee-real arrangement, payment mechanism. That is, when we export the goods, they pay the exporters in terms of rupee. And whatever quantity we import from there, we pay them in the form of real. So this has facilitated the trade on both the sides. And both the countries' economies are also having the complementarities. They are complementing each other. Still, the potential, it is said, the potential for bilateral trade between India and Iran has not even been scratched. This potential, this not have even been scratched on the surface. Given the significant complementarities between the economies of two countries, basically there is huge scope for project exports. We'll discuss it in detail. Project export. There is huge scope for project export. But project exports to Iran hold out a lot of promise and need to be adequately supported. What are project exports? We'll discuss it separately also, but here I must tell you, certain projects are exported. For example, construction of railway line, construction of bridges, construction of roads, construction of power grid. Now, in any project, number of goods, services and construction takes place. So these projects continue as we keep on completing the project, certain parts of the project, the revenues keep on coming. So revenues are received in a staggered manner over 1 to 5 years. So in project export, not only the income is well distributed over the period of time, but the mutual relationship also gets bonded in a very positive manner. Are you getting it? In project export, entire project, responsibility of executing the entire project is taken up. It includes number of goods and services, technical aspects which are provided from India. Even after the completion of project, there will be continuous supply of spare parts. So the relationship continues to exist over a long time. So in Iran there is huge scope for project export. Keeping in view the long-term potential of project export to Iran, especially in railway sector. Basically it is said Iran holds out lot of promise and basically it needs to be adequately supported by Indian side. How? Basically in railway sector in Iran, India has huge potential for exporting the projects. An umbrella financing agreement has also been concluded. an umbrella financing agreement for rupee credit has been signed between Exim Bank of India and Iranian banks that will finance the railway project. The rupee real mechanism has stabilized and is now showing results, and we will continue to strengthen this mechanism for long-term results with long-term relationship with Iran. So what happened? These project exports have significant importance. This helps us in numerous ways. We will discuss this under separate heading, project export. How it benefits. It helps in branding the country's products. It helps in strengthening the relationship, and this relationship continues for long period. And it is not only the sector where the project export is there. Basically, other products of the country also get acceptability in the market of that country. So with Iran, we are evolving our economic relationship. Iran is a major supplier of oil and gas to India. Now let us see our trade relationship with Southeast Asia. Basically, Southeast Asia comprises of countries which are growing rapidly, whose economic growth rate is rapid. Basically, it is in pursuance of Look East policy, which has been the major pillar of countries' foreign policy since early 90s. Since early 90s, the Look East policy had been the major focus of India's foreign policy. India has developed multi-facet relationship with ASEAN countries, both bilaterally and multilaterally. ASEAN comprises of 10 countries. ASEAN comprises of 10 countries. ASEAN comprises of 10 countries. Yes. See, Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, Brunei, Philippines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 is Singapore. These 10 countries. So ASEAN is a grouping of these 10 countries with which we have very cordial trading relationship. Now, in case of trade with ASEAN, we have taken significant initiatives, and basically with certain countries we are having bilateral trade relationship, with others we are developing multilateral trade relationship. Now, taking this to the logical, basically what happens, India's trade with ASEAN is gradually increasing. Now, taking the Look East policy to the next phase, we have adopted the policy of Act East policy. Taking the Look East policy to its logical next phase, we have adopted Act East policy of Government of India. This endeavors to cultivate wide-ranging economic as well as strategic relationship in Southeast Asia. India's trade with ASEAN was $75 billion in 2013-14, and this accounted for 10% of India's total trade. Now, ASEAN as a bloc has become one of India's largest trading partners in recent years. $75 billion. The bilateral trade is, India's trade is, ASEAN is $75 billion. That is 10% of India's trade. In fact, Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia and Thailand. Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand. From ASEAN are the 4 countries which account for 80% of India's trade with ASEAN. What are those countries? Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand. These are the 4 major trading partners of India in Southeast Asia, which alone account for 80%. These 4 accounts for 80% of India's total trade with ASEAN. The ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement, we had trade in goods agreement that entered into force in January 2010. ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement had already come into existence in 2010, and ASEAN-India Agreement on Trade in Services and Investment became operational from July 2015. Goods में तो ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट पहले से था. Now the agreement on trade in services and investment, India ASEAN agreement on trade in services and investment has become operational from July 2015. It provides business certainty to basically service providers from both India and ASEAN. Now services also included. This agreement provides business certainty to the service providers from both India and ASEAN. Now this will further extend. Now it has recently been initiated, so this will further extend the trade. Trade and is expected basically to this trade agreement in trade in services and investment. This is expected to strengthen the business and commercial relationship between India and ASEAN. This will also open up opportunities of movement of both manpower and investment between India and ASEAN countries. That is agreement on trade in services and investment. This will broaden the horizon and increase the activities where the free trade will be conducted between India and ASEAN. Apart from this, India-Singapore Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement became operational from 2005, and a Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement was signed with Malaysia in 2011, and a Comprehensive Free Trade Agreement is being negotiated with Thailand. So these are the developments that are taking place in between India and Southeast Asia. Now, what is the future focus? We need to integrate. We are in the process of integrating Southeast Asia completely, so that this entire region, South Asia and Southeast Asia, act as a block. So, future focus is towards further integration of relationship between ASEAN and South Asia. The future focus between India and ASEAN countries enhancing bilateral and regional relationship, enhancing bilateral and regional trade relations with this rapidly growing Southeast Asian region. This is primary focus of Indian foreign trade policy, that we must have a very cordial relationship with the Southeast Asian region. Trade integration with CLMV countries: Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam. CLMV countries: Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam. Basically, trade integration with these are part of ASEAN. Trade integration with these CLMV countries is an important part of India's future regional trade strategy. These are fast growing developing countries where we have huge potential for strengthening the trade ties. Basically, these countries, India's future regional trade strategy are especially focused on these four countries. These are among the fastest growing economies in the ASEAN region. CLMV countries are among the fastest growing economy in the ASEAN region. With rising consumption level, the consumption in these countries is increasing. A young workforce, the youthful people are young, and basically rich natural resources. They are rich in natural resources. This offers India significant opportunity for trade in goods and services. In fact, these are developing countries. We also have the opportunity for project exports, isn't it? Apart from developing trade in goods and services, India has huge opportunity for investment and project exports. 3 of the CLMV countries benefit from India's zero tariff regime, which is open for least developed countries. For least developed countries, India has zero tariff regime. That is, goods from least developed countries are put to zero custom duty. Out of these 4 CLMV countries, 3 benefit from India's zero tariff regime for least developed countries. However, so far the scope of engagement by Indian firms with CLMV country remains limited, but in near future it is bound to increase rapidly. The CLMV region offers opportunity for Indian investment in manufacturing zones. They are having manufacturing zones, and these 4 countries offer opportunity for Indian investment in manufacturing zones with a view to benefit from their institutional trade architecture. By investing in their manufacturing zone, we can take the benefit of their institutional trade architecture and lower factor cost, cheap labor. There we can, by investing in manufacturing in these countries, we can reap the benefit of their trade architecture as well as lower factor cost. It was announced in the budget of 2015-16 that in order to catalyze investment from Indian private sector in this CLMV region, a project development company will be set. A project development company will set up manufacturing hubs in CLMV countries. So that will enhance India's investment in this region and integrate Indian economy with the economy of these CLMV countries. Now there is a proposal, a grand proposal of connecting India's northeast region with ASEAN. That is known as Trilateral Highway. There is a grand proposal to make a highway so that the physical connectivity between this region is improved. Between India, Myanmar, Thailand, a trilateral highway. Connecting with ASEAN is one of the strategic priorities of India. From northeastern states of India, if you see 4 northeastern states of India share its border with Myanmar. 4 northeastern states of India share its border with Myanmar. And basically we can have very good connectivity with Southeast Asia. We can have very good connectivity with Southeast Asia. What are the 4 states? Arunachal Pradesh, Nagaland, Manipur, Mizoram. So basically 4 northeastern states share border with this, and we are trying to construct a highway. But between these we have recently already started a shipping service between India and Myanmar. From Manipur at More, we are trying to construct a highway. The single biggest effort under the ASEAN-India connectivity is the India-Myanmar-Thailand Trilateral Highway, which also constitute part of proposed Asian Highway Network, AH1. Basically, it has been proposed that India, Myanmar and Thailand will be connected by way of highway. This will provide connectivity, and subsequently the countries of Vietnam, Laos and Cambodia, they have also shown interest that this highway should be extended to their country. So this will be the single largest effort for improving the connectivity between India and ASEAN. That is India, Myanmar, Thailand highway, which is also part of Asian Highway Network AH1. This highway starts from More in Myanmar, More in Manipur. And this passes through Mandalay, isn't it? And Yangon in Myanmar. It passes through Mandalay and Yangon in Myanmar and extend up to Thailand. This highway starts from More in Manipur in India and ends at Mysore in Thailand. More in Manipur in India up to Mysore in Thailand. passing through Mandalay and Yangon in Myanmar. Basically, on the completion of this project, the project will provide complete land connectivity between India and ASEAN region through Myanmar and Thailand. The relevant governments are also considering for extending the highway further to Cambodia, Laos and Vietnam. This connectivity will augment trade by reducing the travel distance and time, thus enabling the economies of these regions, that is India and ASEAN, to integrate further and collectively emerge as a globally competitive bloc. Once South Asia gets integrated with Southeast Asia, this will emerge as a unique, a complete bloc. This will collectively emerge as a globally competitive economic region that will have the capacity, strength to compete with even with developed countries. Now, second, after Southeast Asia, the second part that is important is Northeast Asia. Northeast Asia, this comprises of China, basically Japan, Korea, Thailand, Mongolia. Northeast Asia, if you see, China, North Korea, South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Hong Kong and Mongolia. This is Northeast Asia. Now, this region accounts for 16% of India's total trade. Northeast Asia. Northeast Asia includes China, Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, the Republic of Korea, that is South Korea, and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, that is North Korea. Although name is Democratic People's Republic, but it is complete autocracy. It is complete autocracy. Now, China, Japan, North Korea, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, China, Mongolia. These are the countries. Now, India's trade with this region stood at $125 billion in 2013-14. India's trade with Northeast Asia was $125 billion. Now, within Northeast Asia, trade with China was $66 billion, largest. Then, trade with Hong Kong, it was $20 billion, second. Third, trade with South Korea was $16.6 billion. And fourth, trade with Japan was $16.3 billion. These countries constitute the major chunk of India's trade volumes. And with this region, if we include the total trade, if we see these countries, it's $66 billion, $20 billion, $16.6 billion and $16.3 billion. Out of $125 billion, major chunk is shared by these countries. Top China, 66 billion, then comes Hong Kong, 20 billion, then comes South Korea, 16.6 billion, then comes Japan, 16.3 billion. Now, these countries are the major trading countries with India. These countries, India has a comprehensive economic partnership agreement with South Korea and Japan. India is already having a comprehensive economic partnership agreement with South Korea and Japan. Three countries of this region, namely China, South Korea and Japan, are also participant in RCEP partnership negotiation. The negotiation for a Trans-Pacific partnership we discussed a 3 mega agreement, out of which one is RCEP. In this negotiation, basically China, South Korea and Japan are also participant in the negotiations. A characteristic common to India's trade relation with these three countries is high trade deficit. With China, with Japan, with South Korea. With all these three countries, we are having huge trade deficit and we will exhaustively examine why. When we will discuss the trade in commodities, we will discuss exhaustively why. Why India? Because these countries we are having very limited market access. In China, the rigid regulatory framework is adversely affecting India's pharma units to expand there. In Japan, it is non-tariff barriers which are acting against India's pharma units to enter into Japan. Japan is the world's second largest pharmaceutical market and India's pharma share is less than 1%. Why we are unable to proceed further? Why? Because of non-tariff barriers. So we will discuss how the free trade agreements that we have with Japan and Korea, South Korea, they have not been fully utilized from the India's perspective. India's market access have been limited, and that is because of various reasons that we will discuss at relevant place. Now, if we see, China alone account for 25% of India's total trade deficit. The trade deficit with China is $36 billion. The trade deficit with China is $36 billion. China alone accounts for quarter of India's total trade deficit. Market access and non-tariff barriers block India's export of pharmaceuticals as well as IT and IT enabled services as well as agro commodities to China. Why? We will discuss what are these issues in detail. What are the basically regulatory measures? What are the basically market access and non-tariff barriers? What are those non-tariff barriers that are hindering India's exports to China in sectors like pharma, IT and agro commodities? In these sectors, our export to China is not increasing because of non-tariff barriers. Now, India's IT services are unable to make a breakthrough in China's highly controlled and at times opaque state-owned enterprises business. In China, things are not very clear. They are state-owned enterprises and India's IT sector is unable to move inside China. That is unable to make a breakthrough in China's. The market is highly controlled. It is controlled by government. It is opaque. Transparency is not there. If the current situation of trade with China persists, that is China continues to have its non-tariff barriers, it does not allow entry to India's IT and IT enabled services and pharma units to operate in China. If it does not allow, if the same regulatory hurdles remain, then it is projected that by 2016-17, basically the merchandise imports from China will exceed $80 billion. The import from China will exceed $80 billion while India's export to China will be just $20 billion. As a result, the trade deficit would become $60 billion and that would be highly unsustainable. As far as India's economic relations with South Korea and Japan are concerned, analysis indicates that the projected gains for India from comprehensive economic partnership agreement, we are having comprehensive economic partnership agreement with South Korea and Japan. The gains that were anticipated by way of this partnership with these countries have not materialized to the extent they were anticipated. Now, what are the future focus in Northeast Asia? Now, engagement with China requires a comprehensive approach on trade, investment and economic cooperation issues. Like see, with regard to China, India will on its side continue to pursue market access issues. India will continue to ask China to give it market access, to give India market access and remove non-tariff barriers. Those non-tariff barriers like regulatory hurdles, we will discuss what are non-tariff barriers. All other barriers apart from custom duty, that is tariff, are non-tariff barriers. They may be sanitary and phytosanitary measures, but in case of China, it is a regulatory mechanism. For Indian pharma unit to register in China, it takes 3 to 4 years and they have to conduct clinical tests in China. So that becomes very difficult for India's pharma units to operate in China. While in India, it takes just 8 to 10 months for any unit to register. So India's pharma sector and IT sector are not making much headway in China. So India will continue to pursue market access issues and removal of non-tariff barriers to augment its export of pharma and other agro commodities, so that India can increase its export of pharma and other agricultural commodities. India would seek to open China's opaque means which is not transparent, state-owned enterprises service sector for India's IT services. That is state-owned service sector, IT sector, that is owned by the state. India will seek to open China's opaque state-owned enterprises services sector for India's IT sector, IT services. India would seek Chinese investment, that China should invest in India in boosting India's manufacturing capacity, because China's manufacturing is strong and India would envisage that China should invest in India, like in industrial parks, in SEZs and national investment and manufacturing zones, etc. A memorandum of understanding for industrial parks has already been signed with China. Further, India will seek to operationalize the 5-year development program for economic and trade cooperation. There is a 5-year development program for economic and trade cooperation that lays out a roadmap for comprehensively deepening and balancing the bilateral engagement. So these are the measures that India has formulated with respect to China, that these will be imposed. With respect to Japan, in case of Japan, the Japanese market has not seen growth in products which are of India's interest. That is, India's exports to Japan are still limited. For example, in pharma sector, India's SS is limited. Japan is world's second largest market of pharmaceutical, but India's share is less than 1%. India business entities, why they are facing problem in Japan? एक तो language issue है, उनकी बोली वही समझ में नहीं आती, क्या बोलते हैं वो समझ में नहीं आता. One barrier is language. India's business entities are facing problems in market access. These problems can be said to be arising out of language constraint. Secondly, faced by Indian companies. And secondly, highly demanding product. They demand high quality product. And service standards. And there is relative lack of intensive effort on the part of Indian business also. एक तो वहाँ की भाषा नहीं समझ में आती, ऊपर से उनके सर्विस और प्रोडक्ट्स का स्टैंडर्ड बहुत हाई है, और तीसरा हम लोगों की तरफ से उतना एफर्ट भी नहीं हुआ. So India's export to China and South Korea is less, rather our import is high. So that is leading to trade deficit. अच्छा, India's trade and investment relationship with Japan is unique in nature. Why it is unique? Japan is the largest investor in India. Despite that, India's trade relations with Japan are less than that of Hong Kong and South Korea. India's bilateral trade with Japan is just $16.3 billion. इससे ज़्यादा तो हमारा साउथ कोरिया और हांगकांग से है. मतलब India's trade and investment relationship with Japan is unique in nature. Japan is India's largest investment partner, and several ongoing initiatives in this direction are likely to increase Japanese investment. So the assess of India's exports into Japan, basically unique बात है कि नहीं, हमारे यहाँ इतना इन्वेस्ट जापान कर रहा है, but we are not having good trade relationship. अब कैसे export assess किया जाए? How to increase India's export? So the assess of India's export into Japan, एक तो language समझो, this will require understanding language. Maintaining sanitary and phytosanitary standards, high quality standards, basically, and continuous effort on the part of government and business to promote trade. So the assess of India's export into China will require language proficiency, negotiating simplified framework for market access, and continuous trade promotion efforts on the part of business and government. In case of South Korea, it has taken significant South Korea has taken significant advantage of the bilateral comprehensive economic cooperation agreement, है ना, bilateral trade agreement. South Korea has taken significant advantage, but India has not been able to utilize the bilateral agreement to the extent required, right? So with rest of the countries we will continue later.